How to lose a driver in 10 days. On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're talking about how important trust is in the driver-dispatcher relationship. Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler with Chief Carriers, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family. Welcome back to Driven Too Far. While you might find a little humor in the title of this episode, I got to tell you, this is maybe a story I'm a little reluctant to tell, but I and our organization are committed to accountability and transparency. So I think for me, it's a little bit of therapy, and for our team as well. It's something that I feel like I want to share. Richard was a model driver, at least on paper. So Richard contacted recruiting several weeks ago. They have several conversations. They go through the process. He turns his application in, and he's everything we're looking for, at least on paper. Like we say, you really don't get to know people until you have some actual time with them. But he had the experience. He had the safety record. He was kind and polite and professional, and all those things we'd like to see in our drivers. Fast forward 2 weeks, and here comes Richard into orientation. So orientation went really well. Again, sharp guy. Knows his stuff, willing to learn. What he didn't know, he had an open mind. He was fantastic. One of the things we do after day 2 of orientation is our leadership team gets together and talks about their conversation or their experience with the new hires. Hey, is this person a good fit? Did you get any strange vibes out of them? Sometimes drivers like to start telling stories in orientation, and to be honest with you, it can scare you a little bit, whether they're a know-it-all or something like that. But point being, with Richard, there was no strange vibes. Everybody thought, God, this guy's a great fit for our organization. Richard gets a couple weeks in. He has home time scheduled around the Thanksgiving holiday that's coming up. So this will be his first home time since he started. And dispatch has got him a load, basically going through the house. He lives down in the southeast part of the country. The timing looked fine. Everything was planned well, and it was something that was actually going to deliver Wednesday before Thanksgiving, if I remember it right. But something happened. There was a hiccup, and if I remember right, maybe even 2 different things that kind of, wrenches thrown in the system, and something wasn't going to come off like we originally planned it. So how do we work through that? I think what happened is he either got a late start and wasn't going to be able to make that Wednesday delivery due to hours of service or something like that. And there might have also been something else in there about a detour down in the Carolinas, something like that, where we didn't consider the extra out-of-route miles. So bottom line is, Richard calls in, this Wednesday delivery is not going to happen. What are we going to do? Dispatch has the opportunity to look at it. He's talking to one of our dispatchers, and they said, no problem, I'll just push the appointment out till Friday. Well, while that might work for dispatch, it certainly didn't work for Richard, because he was planning on getting home for Thanksgiving to see his family, and he wasn't coming out of the house till the following Monday. So the plan didn't work. And when he called us out on that, he said, listen, this doesn't work. I had plans to be with my family on that Friday. I'm not going to jump back in the truck and run over and go deliver this thing and kind of break up my home time. Dispatch didn't react to that like we should have. First of all, we should have known that we shouldn't do that to a driver anyway. We shouldn't be interrupting their home time with an alternate plan. That should have been discussed ahead of time before that receiver was ever called and the new schedule was set. So bottom line was, we took the load off of him, and I think they ended up just getting him home for the holiday. He was able to stay home for the entire Thursday holiday all the way through the weekend like he planned. But the problem was, I think we broke his trust at that point, because all of a sudden he's wondering if he made the right move coming to work for us. Because of the reaction of dispatch, I have a feeling we probably made the driver feel uncomfortable for letting us know that wasn't going to work. And that's not fair. He didn't do anything wrong. In fact, he did everything right. He had his time off scheduled correctly. He was where he was supposed to be, and the plan just didn't work. And we got to make sure that as in operations or dispatch, we're not turning that back on the driver for something they didn't do. And I have a feeling whether we did that or not, that's how the driver felt in that situation. So drivers especially new drivers, are already nervous, right? If you've ever started with a new company, you're excited, but at the same time, you're nervous because you've just spent a couple weeks probably talking to this recruiter. You're going to a new place. You don't really know anything about them. Yes, you've done your history and your searches and tried to see what they're all about online, and it looks pretty good, but there's still part of you that is nervous because sometimes it sounds too good to be true, and you're thinking, boy, this company sounds really good. There's no way that there's a trucking company out there that really is like this and really takes care of their drivers like they say they do. So while I think we were off to a great start through orientation in the first couple weeks, we dropped the ball in operations with this situation. So again, we broke that driver's trust, and sometimes that's all it takes is that one time, especially early in the relationship, when we didn't do what we should have done or we didn't do what we say we were going to do. Now the driver's skeptical. Now everything's going to be under the microscope going forward because everything was good until that one instance. Now I'm gonna second guess everything, or I'm gonna really be skeptical about what they tell me they're gonna do next. And for us, that was really disappointing because I truly believe we work really hard to have our act together. We work really hard to make sure that what recruiting is selling is what we can deliver in operations for the drivers. So we don't tell them one thing and then, show them another. We work really hard to make sure that whole transition process is very smooth and we are who we say we're going to be, and we follow through on those things. In fact, we are coming off a record low turnover year for us, and I think it's a number that most carriers would give their left lug nut for, to have a turnover that low. So to me, that's an indication we're doing a lot of things right because drivers are staying, they're not leaving. So that's probably why this was so disappointing. It was just something that happened really out of character for us, and we had to talk about it. We had to regroup. We had to call ourselves out. We had to look in the mirror and understand that we made the mistake and that we need to learn a lesson from that so we don't repeat it. In less than 2 weeks, we broke the trust of this driver. And again, trust is everything, especially in a new relationship. Now, Richard did work through that holiday with us and stayed with us for a couple more weeks, but I'm sure at that point he was really questioning himself if he'd made the right choice to come to us based on what his experience has been with us. So I have no doubt probably immediately after that holiday weekend, he was already looking, thinking, what's his next move? He probably wasn't going to stick around. He made it a couple more weeks and then he gave notice, and of course he's moved on to something else, which doesn't come to me as a surprise. But when I think about, all the work that recruiting and everybody puts into bringing on new drivers, all that hard work we do, and it just takes that one moment to break all that and screw that up. So pretty disappointing. But again, the biggest thing is, what do we take away from it? What do we learn from it so we don't repeat it? So why am I sharing the story with you? Well, again, it's painful. It's something that it's one of those things you don't like to talk about, or at least admit that you made some errors. But I do believe that's the only way we get better, is to take ownership of that stuff. So the reason I share that with you or share that with the audience is because I do want you to know what kind of company we are. A lot of carriers, a lot of dispatchers could have been in that exact same situation, and the driver gives notice and is going to leave, and they would have just kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, oh, well, it's just a driver. We'll find another one. But that's not how it works. That's not how it should work. At Chief, we take a driver loss personally, and we should. Everybody's very proud in the company of how we operate things. So when somebody decides to leave us, and it was a reason that we could have prevented, again, it's back to the accountability and the ownership of everyone on the team, not just that one particular dispatcher, but there may have been some other clues or issues there that we could have all jumped on and worked a little bit harder to correct. So for us, it's an opportunity to do better and learn from it. And it's really critical that these types of things never just get swept under the rug, which I have a feeling they would have at a lot of other companies. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Driven Too Far. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode.